Right now, you're reading this on a screen, sitting in a chair, in a room with walls, a ceiling, a door that locks. Every single thing around you, the chair, the screen, the room itself, is a technology your ancestors never had. But here's the question nobody ever really asks. What did they actually do all day? Not the big moments, not the hunts, the migrations, the tool making, the ordinary hours, the Tuesday afternoon of 50,000 BC. The answer is stranger, harder, and more human than you'd expect. Ancient humans didn't have alarm clocks. They had something far less forgiving: the sun. Before artificial light existed, human sleep was governed entirely by darkness. When the sun rose, you woke up. Not because you wanted to, because your brain had no choice. The first thing every single morning, before food, before anything else, was a threat assessment. You stepped outside and you scanned trees, horizon, every shadow. Not because it was a habit, because the last person who skipped this step got eaten. We know this from studying modern hunter-gatherer groups still living traditional lifestyles. The Hadza in Tanzania, the Sand People in southern Africa. The morning scan is universal. Then came water. Not coffee, not juice, water. And finding it was not trivial. Ancient humans needed roughly 2 to 3 liters per day, just like us. But their nearest water source might be miles away, guarded by predators who had the same idea. Groups developed mental maps of every water source within their territory. Where it was in summer, where it moved in dry season, who else used it. Getting water wrong didn't mean you were thirsty. It meant you died. Food was next. And this is where the daily life of ancient humans gets genuinely fascinating. We think of hunting as the primary activity. But for most of human prehistory, plant foods made up 60 to 80% of the diet. Women and children gathered plants, roots, tubers, and berries, often for 4 to 6 hours every single day. The men who were hunting were actually less reliable for daily calories. A hunt could fail. Plants were always there. When a hunt did happen, it looked nothing like what you see in movies. There were no dramatic sprints, no single heroic spear throw. The most common early hunting technique was persistence hunting. You find an animal, you follow it for hours, sometimes all day. Humans are terrible sprinters, but we are extraordinary endurance machines. We're the only animal that can run 20 miles in the heat without dying. Every other mammal pants to cool down. Panting requires stopping. We sweat instead. We can run while cooling ourselves, and our prey cannot. The animal eventually overheats and collapses. You walk up to it. That's how it actually worked. A successful hunt was an event. The entire group ate. Meat was shared according to strict social rules that anthropologists are still studying today. Between finding food and the long evening hours, there was tool making. And this was not a quick task. A single stone hand axe took an experienced maker anywhere from 15 minutes to several hours. Researchers at the University of London spent years trying to learn flint knapping from scratch. It took most of them months before they could produce a usable tool. This means ancient humans had specialists, people who were better at tool making, better at tracking, better at plant identification. Division of labor is not a modern invention, but here's what most people don't realize about ancient humans. They were not lonely. They were almost never alone. The average hunter-gatherer band was 20 to 50 people, always moving, always together. You knew every single person in your group, their strengths, their weaknesses, who they were in love with. Social grooming, which is basically what talking is, took up enormous amounts of the day. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar argues that language itself evolved specifically to maintain these social bonds. Ancient humans gossiped, they complained, they made jokes, they had opinions about each other. We know this because every modern hunter-gatherer group we've studied does exactly this. Children were not sent to school. They were taken everywhere. A child in a hunter-gatherer society learned to track animals by actually following tracks, learned which plants were edible by watching adults eat them, learned to make tools by sitting next to someone making tools. The entire community raised the child, not just the parents. Grandmothers were especially important, which is why humans live so long after they can no longer reproduce, an anomaly in the animal kingdom. This is called the grandmother hypothesis, and it's one of the strongest explanations for why humans, uniquely among great apes, have a long post-reproductive lifespan. As the sun dropped, everything shifted. The fire was lit, or rekindled if it had been banked. This was not trivial. Losing your fire meant starting from scratch, which took serious skill and sometimes an hour of work. Around the fire, the day's work stopped, and something else began. In 2014, anthropologist Polly Wiesner studied firelight conversations among the Juhuanzi Bushmen. During the day, 80% of conversations were practical. At night, that flipped. 81% were stories. Stories about distant places, myths, jokes that made everyone laugh, ghost stories, love stories. Wiesner argued that this is where human imagination was born. The campfire was the original classroom, the original theater, the original religion. Sleep itself was different. Ancient humans almost certainly did not sleep in one long block the way we do. Historian Roger Ekirch found over 500 historical references to first sleep and second sleep. People slept for 4 hours, woke up for an hour or two, then slept again. That middle-of-the-night waking was not insomnia. It was normal. Modern insomnia may partly be our bodies trying to return to a pattern that worked for 300,000 years, and failing to do it in a world that won't let them. Here's what's strange about all of this. Ancient human life was brutal by modern standards. The infant mortality rate was catastrophic. Injuries meant death. Hunger was constant. But researchers who study hunter-gatherer societies consistently report something unexpected. These people were not miserable. The Hadza of Tanzania work an average of 4 to 6 hours per day to meet all their needs. They spend the rest socializing, resting, and playing. Anthropologist Marshall Solins called hunter-gatherer societies the original affluent society. Not rich in things, but rich in time. We built civilization to escape the hardship of ancient life. And we did. But somewhere along the way, we also lost the 4-hour workday. The fire circle, the shared story, the unbroken sleep. The question isn't whether ancient life was better or worse. The question is, what did they know about being human that we've completely forgotten?